Welcome back to our junior church here for this week. And I want to remind us from the last time that Esther was planning a banquet. Esther was trying to find a way to tell her husband, the king, that Haman was trying to get rid of her people and herself. And Haman had to do an act that he thought was horrible. He had to make Mordecai a guy that just was revered because he never got his due reward. So now we enter in to chapter 7 of Esther to find out what exactly happens at the banquet seat. So Esther chapter 7 verse number 1 says this: "And so the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen." So it was a 2-day event so far. How do we know that? How do we know that? Verse 2. "And the king said again unto Esther on the 2nd day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? Queen Esther, what's your question? You have a request? I will answer it." So Esther said, okay, if I'm favored by you, husband, king, let my life be given at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. Now she reveals not only is she a Jew, but that her life is in danger. But if we were sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, though the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. And the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he? And where is he, that thou durst presume in his heart to do so? So the king said, hey, who's trying to go after you? Who's trying to go after your people? I wonder what Haman thought when he heard that. Sitting at the banquet, he's in with the king and queen. George just told, you might want to be careful about messing with the Jewish people. They tend to, God tends to protect them. God protects his people who follow him. Sure enough, Esther said, someone's trying to get rid of us. Haman knew. Haman knew it was him. And so sure enough, Esther said that adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. He was like, whoa, this is bad. I'm in front of the king, and I'm in trouble. This is basically what he is saying. So he stood up. He's like, please don't take my life. He's begging. He's pleading. And while this is all going on, the king goes out, and Esther fell down on top of Esther, and it looked even more worse than it should have been. And so not only is Haman trying to get his life, trying to save his life, now the king now it looks like that he's trying to do bad things to the king's wife. And someone, Harbona, said, hey, Haman built a hanging stock for Mordecai. Why don't we put Haman there instead? So sure enough, they hanged him. They killed him. And now the king was not so angry anymore. But now they had to figure out this law. They had to figure out how to get rid of this law. So Haman's gone. And she said, hey, we need to get rid of this punishment that's supposed to be coming. How are we going to make it happen? I can't see my people doing wrong. And Ahasuerus had found out that the reason why Haman was doing this was really because of his hatred toward Mordecai. So because of one person that he didn't like, he tried to get rid of the entire group of people. So they all got together. They were able to change the law. The law no longer had to take place. They got rid of those who tried to go against them. Mordecai was elevated up into a new place, and then we are established with a new feast that is called the Feast of Purim. And how was this taking place? Well, they had gotten rid of their enemies. Mordecai had saved the king on more than one occasion. Haman was gone now. And they called these days Purim because of those letters that are finally gone. And things started to cool down. Things were good. And more importantly, Mordecai was able to help along with King Ahasuerus, basically taking Haman's spot. Why? Because Mordecai still wanted to follow God. Mordecai still wanted to do what was right, and he knew he wasn't going to worship a man. And that's what set off Haman in the first place, that Mordecai didn't bow down to him. And he got all full of himself, and he's like, well, if you're not going to do it, they're not going to do it, I'm not going to be respected. I'm just going to get rid of all of them. But when you try to go against God, you're going to lose. And that's what we really learn from Esther's story. A girl who was asked to be a part of the king's, to be married to the king, which ultimately was able to help the Jews save the day, essentially. Haman had a hatred, and hate is wrong. There's so much hate going on today. A lot of hate. I mean, all you gotta do is just look on news. People hate each other with more of a passion than anything else. But how do you overcome hate? Love. In this story here, Esther was able to save her people because she was brave, she was bold. But more importantly, as a Christian, you serve God. People are going to hate you because you want to live for God. Because people want to say, oh, God is this, God does this, God does that. When in all reality, we do sometimes the same things. Someone wrongs us, some people try to go after them and get revenge on them. When people get in trouble, they get punished. Well, God is the same way. If people do wrong, they get punished. Oh, God doesn't care about certain groups of people. He wipes them all out. Well, how many times have people rejected God? How many times have people been told, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this? If anything, God is a God of justice. God, He asks people, He asks in the Bible over and over again, just do what I ask you to do, and things are going to be good. It doesn't mean you have to be living a boring life. It doesn't mean that, oh, I have to always be watching over my shoulder because if I do something wrong, I'm going to get zapped. No. What it is that God wants us just to do right. It really is all that boils down to. Is it wrong to do good? Sometimes it is. Sometimes people think it is the case. It's wrong to do good. And that's why we have all this hatred toward people, hatred toward things, hatred toward ideas. Haman's hatred was so bad just on one person, he wanted to see an entire group of people gone. But all Mordecai did was honor God. He wasn't going to worship man. He respected Haman's position, but he wasn't going to bow down to him. Esther was willing to risk her life in front of a king just to save her people. That's all on the story of Esther. Next week we'll continue back through the book of Ezra, see how Ezra preaches a great revival sermon, and then we get to look at the wall that Nehemiah builds. And the wall that Nehemiah builds will then take us into the New Testament, about 400 years or so, and we'll look at the birth of Christ as we're getting close to the Christmas season. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you soon.